Okay, so you guys wanted to take a deep dive into this whole U.S.-Canada tariff thing,
Yeah.
and I got to say, things are getting kind of spicy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We've got some pretty recent news here outlining this back and forth, and
Right.
feels like a full-blown trade war is brewing
It really does.
between these two countries that are typically,
Yeah.
pretty friendly neighbors.
Historically very friendly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating to me to see just how fast these trade tensions that have been kind of simmering under the surface for a while have just like boiled over.
Right.
It seems like it happens so quickly.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's going to be really important for us to look closely at the key players here, obviously, but also like their motivations, what's driving this,
Mm-hmm.
and then, of course, what are the potential, consequences,
Right.
fallout from this on both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah, so to kind of set the scene, I guess,
Yeah.
things really kicked off on Tuesday when the U.S. kind of slapped a 25% tariff on a whole bunch of different Canadian goods,
Wow.
plus a 10% hit, specifically on energy,
Okay.
which seems like a pretty aggressive opening move.
Definitely a strong statement right out of the gate.
Yeah, for sure.
And Canada didn't just sit back,
Right.
Prime Minister Trudeau, he immediately countered
Okay.
with the 25% tariffs of their own
Uh-huh.
on $155 billion
Wow.
worth of American goods that are coming into Canada.
Okay.
And that covers a huge range of stuff,
Yeah, what kind of things are we talking?
I mean, everything from like orange juice
Really?
at the breakfast table to like the appliances that are keeping our kitchens running.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a real tit for tat
Yeah.
situation developing here.
Absolutely.
But Canada's finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc,
Right.
he's been saying that this is a measured response
Okay.
from Canada.
Uh-huh.
Is it all just posturing?
Hmm.
Or is there actually some strategy at play?
I think there's definitely a calculated approach behind how Canada's responding.
Okay.
They're matching the 25% rate, right, but they're not going higher than that,
Right.
which to me suggests that they're trying to avoid just like a total escalation, a
Right.
full-blown trade war.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, they're also phasing in these tariffs.
Okay.
So the initial like $30 billion that they're putting tariffs on,
Mm-hmm.
that's targeting consumer goods where Canadians could pretty easily find, non-American alternatives.
Okay.
So it's almost like a clever way to minimize that immediate impact on their consumers
Yeah.
while still sending a very clear message.
Right. Okay, so if Canadians can just like easily switch from, let's say,
Yeah.
an American-made washing machine to one from
Exactly.
Korea or Europe or something like that.
Yep.
That kind of lessens the sting.
Right, exactly, it does.
But what about that second phase you mentioned, that
Yeah.
$125 billion that's targeting things like
Right.
vehicles and meat and dairy? That could have a much bigger impact, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Those sectors are really deeply intertwined,
Yeah.
between the two countries. And the effects of tariffs on those goods
Right.
are going to be felt, on both sides of the border for sure.
Right.
It is interesting, though, that Canada's holding off on actually implementing that second phase.
Oh.
For a bit, they're allowing for a public comment period,
Ooh.
and they're saying that they want to have some further discussions.
Okay.
So that suggests to me, at least, that they are leaving the door open for some negotiation.
Right. Well, that makes you wonder then why haven't we seen any direct talks between like Trump and Trudeau?
Yeah,
The article only mentioned discussions happening at like the ministerial level,
right.
which seems a little strange.
Yeah, that lack of direct communication, I think, is a little bit of a red flag for sure.
Yeah.
Because, historically, these kinds of communication breakdowns,
Yeah.
they can just make situations escalate so unnecessarily. And it makes you wonder, is there a lack of trust here?
Mm.
Has one side miscalculated the other side's resolve?
Yeah.
It's definitely a critical piece of the puzzle here.
It's a big deal, especially given, the long history of collaboration between Canada and the U.S.
Right.
And generally like positive relations.
Absolutely.
It seems like, picking up the phone and having a chat wouldn't be out of the question.
Right.
But we're hearing LeBlanc express optimism, though.
Okay.
He seems to believe that the U.S. will eventually see just how much economic harm these tariffs are causing
Mm-hmm.
and just come back to the table. Is that a realistic assessment, do you think?
I mean, it's possible. I think LeBlanc's optimism there might be grounded in kind of the economic realities of the situation.
Okay.
Certain U.S. industries, like agriculture, for example, they rely really heavily on Canadian exports.
Right.
So that interdependence, could force them to reassess the situation. However, There's also a very real risk, I think, that this becomes a much more drawn-out trade war.
Right.
If both sides dig in and refuse to budge,
Yeah.
the long-term consequences could be really significant, and not just for the U.S. and Canada,
Right.
but for, global trade patterns as a whole.
Wow. Okay, so for everyone listening out there,
Yeah,
you've basically got a front row seat
that's right.
to this high-stakes game of economic chess.
Totally.
We've got these two typically close allies
Yeah.
locked in a trade war
Yep.
with some potentially global ramifications.
Mhm.
And the question remains, will cooler heads prevail?
Right.
Or are we headed for this prolonged period of economic tension?
A big question for sure, and one that I think forces us to consider,
Yeah.
what does it mean for the stability of global trade as a whole? If even strong alliances like this are susceptible to this kind of aggressive, economic maneuvering,
Right.
it's definitely something worth thinking about as we watch this whole situation unfold.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks for breaking that down for us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning into the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.